When we start working with Lightroom and we're working with keywords maybe for the first time, and we have to decide on a file structure, how we're going to store our raw or original files, where and how we're going to store our completed images, you can understand that there's a degree of experience needed, and we're always going to find times when we do one thing one day and decide the next day that perhaps that wasn't such a good idea. What I'd like to do here is just revisit looking at the folders on the left hand side and talk about making some adjustments as we go. If we look over to the left hand side at the photography drive, in my 2014 RAW catalogue, the images are all filed in date order folders. Now, if we relied solely on the search parameters at the top of the screen, then what does it matter what these folders are called? But quite often, we don't want to do a search. All we want to do is to browse for a few images, and sometimes we may know where we need to look. You may remember that one of those folders on the left-hand side relates to a batch of images we shot in Sydney, Australia. And it may be because we need to find a few cityscapes and we know exactly where they are. In that case, it's not a problem if I search for them, but just looking at the file tree doesn't help me a great deal. Well, there are a couple of options here. Let's look at both of those. What I've just done is to slip a flashcard into my card reader, so I'm going to go to my import option. Lightroom should read all of the images. Now we know that most of the changes we might like to make here don't need any changing at all. File handling, for example, that's fine. We can go to file renaming, and I could put in some custom text here like I did before, and this is Noosa. I'm going to use NP for National Park, so I don't need any other changes there. Apply during import. There's nothing else I need there apart from perhaps Noosa National Park there as a keyword, but the difference is in the destination. Let me close the two above down so we're just looking at the destination. The important part I want to draw your attention to is we've highlighted the raw images section, which is where our catalogue is stored. Left to its own devices, what Lightroom is going to do with these images is to put them in a folder called the 20th of January 2014. But what we can do is change that. If I take you back to the top of the destination option, what we can do is tick the box and we can put these into a subfolder. Now I'm going to choose the title Noosa National Park, but I don't want to organize these by date, otherwise we'll have them in a folder, and I want to keep them all pretty much the same as all of the images that I store within that catalogue. So I'm going to go to the organize option here, and I'm going to choose an option to say put them into one folder, and when I do that you'll notice that the other option that we had here has disappeared. You may also remember that last time we chose the location to put new images when we are importing them into the raw images catalogue, because with the previous setting we had, a folder for 2014 would have been automatically created, and of course if one already exists, Lightroom just use the one that exists. Here it's going to be slightly different. So now rather than select raw images, I've got to select my 2014 folder. Now I'm going to go down and import these images, and I'll be back and we'll take a look at the result when that's complete. Now a thought has occurred to me while I'm downloading these images, so I've started my video again. It follows, I think, that when we're new to importing images through Lightroom, it's probably going to be a good idea, before we dive in and start to import lots of images from lots of locations, to just set up a few test folders to start with. And try all of the options you saw me changing a few moments ago with different folders, so you settle on one particular import way that suits you, and then you can carry on as you mean to. Now, while these images are still being imported, I can see that I've got my file structure right. We can see already over on the left hand side that the Noosa National Park folder of images is included in exactly the same way as all the others. We haven't got a folder inside of a folder. It would get quite complicated, I think, if some of the folders opened up and revealed images and some folders opened up and revealed other folders. I like to keep things pretty simple when I'm trying to find, locate and work on my images. Now, of course, there is a second option to what we've just done here. I've demonstrated what another option may be by importing another batch of images. But we can always change the name of the folder from within Lightroom. Remember, we can make as many changes as we like within Lightroom because Lightroom will keep track of what we're doing. What we can't do is rename our folders outside of Lightroom, such as in Windows Explorer. If I highlight the top folder here, when the images are revealed, if we go to our keyword list or our keywording, we can see the location of these images were Southwest Rocks. So one of the alternatives we would have would be to change the name of that folder. That is a simple right click and a rename. No damage has been done there whatsoever to any of our keywording because once again Lightroom is ahead of us and keeping track for us. And of course, if I decide to work in this way, then it follows before I get hundreds of different folders that it may be a good idea if I go through and change all of them. Now I'll do that off camera and I'll be back in a second. So there I have all of my folders labelled up in a completely different way, but I suppose you could say, but now we don't know when they were shot. Well, yes we do. That's quite easy because all I've got to do is move my cursor over to an image and the tooltip or the little panel will pop up and we can see not only the time the image was shot, but the fact it was shot on the 20th of January 2014. 7:54 and 41 seconds to be precise. What I've done here is to open up Windows Explorer and we're going to go through a quick demonstration of what will actually happen if we rename, change or move an image or a folder of images. Here we'll select the entire folder. I can do it pretty easily here because I can just go to my Noosa National Park, hit the F2 key and I can just put something on the end here. I can just say a test move or a test rename. So what we've done, we've moved them or renamed them outside of Lightroom. Let's take a look what happens when we go back in. Once Lightroom fires up, now it seems to be taking a few seconds longer. Whether that's because it's searching, I don't particularly know. But there we can see we've got a question mark. It still shows us all of the thumbnails because remember it generated those as a secondary option after they were imported. But each of them have got a little explanation mark on the top right, and if we mouse over that it says the photo is missing. If I try to go to the develop module, then it shouldn't be able to do that because it hasn't got an image to actually draw from. All it's drawing from at the moment is our thumbnail. Now you can see that it's not giving us the quality image we would normally have, so what we've got to do is fix our problem. Let's go back to the library and see what we need to do. In our case it's pretty easy because we can go to the folder here. We can right click and we can say find the missing folder. Because we know what we've done, and once we saw the question mark, you get that eureka moment and we think, oh, I know where that is. So I'm going to go to my photography, my raw images, my 2014, my Noosa National Park, select the folder, and it's putting everything back right. Just to get rid of that little bit of wording that we applied, I can actually remove that here now. Right click, rename. Let's remove that lot. Easy when we do it inside Lightroom. It could cause huge complications if we moved a lot of images or renamed a lot of images outside of Lightroom. So if there's nothing else we remember, when we start using Lightroom and catalogues, all the changes must be done here.